You can spend the afternoon session to see how, set your things all right. I mean, Tomcat and other stuff. Going ahead, we have some sort of critical examples which would require back-to-back the server connection or internet. Because if you see the template, I'll be covering all the templates. I'm not going to leave even a single one. The one which is pretty interested is the Google Map. That we have to see. Google Map is part of Android application development, but not part of Android SDK. So, which is loaded through internet, and most of the APIs are not publicly. I mean, it's not open source, in fact, but we have to generate some API keys to get access permission from Google. So you need to have a Gmail account. You should be able to access internet, and your emulator should be able to access internet so that that API key could be validated. And I need to tell you how to generate API keys, how to sign the application so that you can create APKs, so that could be distributed to App Store or private purpose. So these are all the steps which will have a back-to-back requirement with either internet or some sort of administrative privilege of your machine. So that mostly administrative privilege could be easily overcome, but internet is something which is inevitable at this point. Remember the master detail navigation drawer we already talked. Master detail and what else? These guys are all fragments, of course. So almost all the examples are based on fragments. So since we already touched the fragment, we can see them. I would recommend a clear understanding about the fragment. If not, you'll have to do the exercise and get yourself comfortable. And going ahead, I'll be explaining again and again. So just pay attention. So now I'm going to create a blank activity. Just that. Before that, I'd like to check my device is accessible. Internet is accessible from my device. You will have to have your Gmail account connected with that. Any dummy Gmail account you can connect it, but it's been asked in a latest API, but you won't be asked for the previous version of devices. Google want to see like what kind of thing you are doing with Android. It seems to be Google want to have some sort of control over the Android operating system, which is considered one of a pretty open source unrestricted one. But what happened really seems to be not the Google is making the money using Android. Other vendors such as Samsung and HTC making more money than Google using Android. So that's why Google is putting their word or their logos everywhere it's possible nowadays. If you notice that Android 5.0, there are a lot of things where you would have to depend on Google services. Okay, share location. So it looks like my device can access internet. Let me try to see my own website. Okay, it looks fine. So I want you to do this first test. Check your emulator uh, gets connection to an internet. So this is the first thing we have to make it. Sure, like the device is free to access internet. If anything goes wrong at this point where you do not see the expected result, there should be some sort of restriction to access internet. Maybe something. Primarily, your example because this company gives internet access through the proxies. So that proxy setup you may have to do it. There should be an option in settings, but I'll let you know in detail. But I'll just try to show you where it is possible. Wireless and network, cellular networks, access point names. There is a already existing access point. Probably you can go ahead and edit it, or edit it. I don't know. Here. Here, if you see that the proxy information could be set, the proxy name which you have been given, and the username password stuff you may need to add, the port number you may have to enter them to, so that this emulator can also access the internet, or we can get remote data and load it in the application. So this part probably that's why I said once I touch this is slightly not because of the complication, it's because of the setup. uh, in fact, the web service part is pretty easy, but only thing, this kind of setup restrictions going to take our time. So just I wanted to tell that. Let me start writing. Before that, if you remember, okay, let us start with the image. We'll start with the image. We'll try to load a remote picture, a JPEG or PNG from a remote server, load it in our image view. So this activity main, let me put an image. Put a button so that the image could be text. Okay, text part I'll write from the strings file. It is line parent top set to true. Time being, let the app name. Let me put an image view. Image view slightly it could maintain the aspect ratio mean. If you have an image where if you set the width of an image, the height will be automatically adjusted so that the image will show the true form factor, a true image type. Rather, if you force both the width and height with a specific size, the image may be slightly stretched, it may not look proper. So if you are not sure about the image which is going to be loaded in the image view, I would recommend you set either height or width as a match parent. Rest leave it as a wrap content, because automatically the content size would be adjusted, the other content size. So in this case, width I wanted to set it to match parent, so the height will automatically get adjusted, so that the image could be easy to see and will maintain the same quality. It's going to be below. Okay, simple lines. If there is an image view, Uh, I'll do one thing. Just keep a placeholder image. The launcher icon, if you notice, after the upgrade, it put into the mipmap folder. Mean it has a four or five different DP. I mean the pixel size. Depending on the density of your computer study phone screen, the higher resolution image would be picked up, high DP one. uh, Automatically lower end device it will pick the middle one or HDB automatically. So if you have a differential resolution pictures, you can keep it in such a way. So it has been moved here. What I am going to do is just I'm going to copy one. I'm going to keep it in the dropper folder. Just to test how things goes on. Okay, here it is. I think we could put some sort of margin top. Okay. This time on click listener, let me write. We are tired of using the same set on click listener or implement on click listener. This time I'm going to do this way. Now everything is ready. Um, I may think about it, having it as a global or not later. After the button is clicked, um, this will need to make a connection to a remote server and get the data from internet. So which image I want to load? So let me search something. I want to do any name. Suddenly I couldn't think of anybody. Okay, Obama's. Okay, rather smiling one. Internet connection pretty slow today. Waiting to get this guy loaded. get. Okay, so this is the image I want to load in my phone. Very big image seems to be. Okay, never mind. So this is the URL, http upload.wikimapia.org something. Then you can choose your whatever you want. So this image I want to load in my phone. I think in the image view. So if you notice, we already have an image view. So by duly removing this Android icon, I want to put this image loaded through internet. And as I said, it is going to make a connection to an internet. So we have to make sure certain thing. The main one, we have to get a permission, and we have to register ourselves getting the internet permission in the manifest. This is a very important step. Otherwise, your device may not be able to access internet. Because it's a privacy specific, while the user install your application, he should be notified this application will access internet, so that he is aware of the charges, so he's allow you to access internet. So you need to add a users permission tag and find something called EFGH internet. This is the first thing you have to think about while working on web service. I've noticed a lot of developers write everything and suddenly wonder why the data is not coming. The very first investigation starts from this particular permission. Second, we are going to access internet, which may block your UI thread, mean your UI may stuck for some time. So we have to write the code in a thread, Java thread. As we already know, a thread, a process inside a process, a different process, a process which is initiated by existing process and then disconnect itself, execute independently when the result is received and come back to the host process. So this is a scenario of a thread. Android has a specific or maybe a specialized thread for web services or internet access. That is called, we call it as AsyncTask. Means it is a special thread exclusive for web service access in Android. So it's a part of SDK. So you need to write a class, because that's an abstract class. Some name, image web service extends AsyncTask. As you notice, it asks the three parameters. Probably I can show you. It requires some sort of three parameters, mean three types which is going to take, or three type of declarations this method is going to take. It seems to be quite weird. Params, progress, result. Okay, what for they? I'm not pretty sure. What I'm going to do, I'm going to type all these guys a string. Because I'll let you know what are all these three. But before that, it is showing me error. Okay, this bulb came. Some sort of abstract method is there. It wants to get implemented called do background. It's pretty clear. A do background looks like a method which is going to work in a background thread and maybe accessing the data using internet. And it contains an argument string and followed by three dots, and a kind of an argument name. Have you ever seen these things? A string or any data type followed by three dots. Have you seen in your Java training program? Anything discussed? Okay. This kind of data types are called variable argument, var args. Var args, we in short term we say variable arguments. It means it's maybe I can write some example. It's part of a method overloading. Assume you have a method which takes one single string argument. You have the same method which takes two string arguments. You have another method which takes three arguments. Programmatically there is no error because this type of methods which is having a multiple or variable amount of arguments are considered method overloading. So same method having a different type of arguments or different set of arguments, maybe a different type also, not necessary to be all the strings, but if at all it is all the strings or all integers or all same type. So if I need to access a data my function, sorry, it is I'm typing in the return state. Let me access somewhere else. Here it is. So when I try to call the method, when I supply three arguments in this case, I'm pretty sure this is the method which get executed. It's obviously because this number of argument matches with the supplied arguments. But what if I have to send obviously it is throwing error because it doesn't have a method having the same signature, same set of arguments, because as for our code does not contain a method having how many arguments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 arguments, none of the methods taking, and that too the method name starts with the my string. But if you have a requirement where you may need such a methods to take any number of same set of arguments, you can use a variable argument type var args, in short we call. I don't need it. Three dots should be. I just put a three dots. 3 means it's going to be a variable argument type, mean then could be n number of arguments. See, if you see this guy, now there's no error. It can take any number of arguments when such a data is being given. It can take unlimited, but only thing it should require the same data type. So any number of arguments could be taken that it automatically cast it to a variable argument type. If the method is present, this particular method could be sent with any number of same set of arguments. If such a case it is an integer, same set of integers could be sent. And how I can retrieve it back here, it is considered as a for loop. Uh, for example, int I0. retrieve them everything, putting into a for loop, get all the arguments and process wherever needed. So of course in this order every arguments could be captured and be sent. So the variable argument types or var args can take any number of arguments. So being the do background, it accepts a string type var arg. It's a var arg mean there is a variable argument type of string. So it can accept any number of argument. That's it. We have to understand. So this method can take any number of string arguments. So for that example, I have put a simple example here. So when you find a variable argument, that particular argument seems to be treated as array, and this array could be retrieved and of course can be taken for your rest of the process. So this kind of data type is called var args. Var so that we say this one. Okay, so fine. Few things though it does not ask you to implement. I'm going to implement certain method called PostExecute. Just before that, on pre-execute, if at all the constructor needed, constructor if at all needed. I implemented a method called pre-execute, and there is a method called do background, another one post-execute. As you see that mean just before calling the web service, calling the internet. Now you call the internet. Now your connection is over. So entering, executing, exiting. So you are trying to first, you are attempting to connect to internet, you are connected with internet, your connection is done because your HTTP now send the data, now you can disconnect with the internet. 3 input ways you can get inside the thread and see what is happening to your internet connection or the connection with your remote server. So this is pre-execute mean just before accessing the remote server. Now you access the remote server, you're waiting to receive the response. Now you got the response and you can go ahead and quit this particular process and attach to your UI thread if at all required. So 3 type, that's why it is a special type thread exclusive for Android web services. It gives you a 3 entry points. One is before accessing a remote server and while accessing your remote server, and once your remote server send the response and you're ready to take that to your UI. There is one more thing is also there, maybe I forgot it. On progress update. This is still an optional one. Almost all those things are optional, but this one also, if required, we can implement. There are a couple of times we may have to display some percentage. So 1% loaded, 2% loaded. As you start receiving the data, you want to show some sort of a numbers. So how many data has been retrieved. So something you can display. So such a time you may use this method. But one thing we have to watch, the do background accept a string argument type var arg type. The same progress update also take a string var arg type and values, and post execute is also string. Almost all these guys are three strings have been used here, and those 3 strings are actually this one. It means if you change these guys, these arguments will also change. I'm changing the 1 to a void, sorry, integer. Now if you see, this guy is throwing error, and it should be integer. So the middle argument is defining the type of your on progress update argument type. That on progress, what are all the data it is going to receive, it is always going to be the same type what you define in the middle here. So the middle data type, it is exclusive for on progress update. I probably do a simple thing. A, B, C. A being string, B is another integer, C. So I can confirm this guy is always B. Okay. I'm changing this guy to a bitmap because the image thing we are going to load, and now this guy started throwing error. Two two methods are throwing error here. This one and this one. So bitmap. Fine. So in this case, this bitmap was C. Then this string, obviously this one. So if I make it integer, this guy is having a problem here, then this will disappear. So this is actually A. So the AsyncTask is a fairly complex, class. It has seems to be various overloaded methods. I think I did. Sorry, I did it wrong. It has a various method overloaded inside, which various methods having the same name but takes a different arguments seems to be. So it's kind of a complex class. So you can define what are all the arguments that each one is going to take in this order. The first one, A, is always the string parameter. That's the expected scenario. This is where you will be injecting your URL. URL is always a string, http dot google whatever. So this is a URL. This is where we'll be pumping in the URL link. So it is always a string. Second, the progress update, usually percentage numbers, 1, 2, 3%. So that's why I put it as an integer here. It's an expected value. The final one, it will vary what you are expecting from the URL. If you are expecting an image which is coming from the URL, it should be bitmap. If you are expecting a JSON response from the URL, it should be a string, because JSON nothing but a string formatted one. So depending on the URL which it serves the data, and the third one will vary. Since the beginning of the example itself, I told I'm attempting to load an image from an URL. That's why the last argument I kept it as a bitmap, because it's going to be a bitmap data, an image data, so that I can display here. Of course, these methods are optional. If you want, you can implement, otherwise don't use it at all. I'm not going to use everything to start with. Probably the on progress update I'll come back a little later, because I need to tell you how to make the HTTP connection. That's the primary goal of accessing the remote data. Constructor also, if at all required. If not constructor, you can simply leave it. You don't even write it. Okay. How I can access this URL? Before writing anything, let me see. When the user click on load image button clicked, I can image web service, it's a class being, so I just initialize as I initialize any normal class. In this case, there's an inner class here. There is a method called execute, which if you notice, which accept as var string dot param. So it is going to accept any number of argument what you send, and this is where I'm going to put my URL. The URL one, which is here, this guy. So I'm going to access this URL. So I can understand. I can send multiple URLs same time. Seems to be I can set because it's a variable argument, a var abstract. So simultaneously, I can call multiple URLs if at all required. The async task is capable to make a independent connection for each set and trying to get the data from internet. And it is since it's a threaded one, it will take the process into background, won't affect your UI thread won't be disturbed at all. But only thing it will have to wait. So that's the only thing. But UI won't stuck. You can continue to use your application. At this point, I'm going to load only one. So just one URL I have put, but yes, I can load multiple URLs also if required. N number of URLs. Because the benefit of using variable argument is I can simply overload the same object type. Okay. Once I call it, this part will start working. But we have to write the code. Before doing everything, we have to make sure we have a permission to access internet. That's I am again telling, because if you forget, you may put an exception. Sometime your emulator will try to say the right thing. Have you forgotten to enter the internet permission? So make sure you put that. And I'm very sure, because accessing this URL, I would be getting a bitmap data, I mean an image. So that's why I made sure the third argument type, I'm expecting a bitmap result. If you notice this bitmap, wherever it is coming, so whatever the background executes, the result will receive the same data type. It's pretty obvious. So time to execute them. Okay, first thing I need to make sure, because the parameter, I'll just for your benefit, URL, first parameter I'm going to take because it's a variable argument. I'm pretty sure since I am sending only one, so still I need to get as a, because this kind of thing, it look like an array type. So if you see, notice I'm retrieving using a for loop, but since I have only one, I'm directly calling that. So I got the URL. Now try to make the connection with the URL. Before doing that, couple of beautiful thing I have done in my code that also I wanted to do. Okay, never mind. First, let me open the input stream. Input stream mean a stream of data which is going to come from internet, from line by line, or maybe if you have a bitmap, so you have to again imagine these things. As I start calling this URL, what happened? The image started loading from the top. It started loading one by one and finally reached one full image load. So this is actually I'm replicating in Java, of course. The input stream means the data will start coming in. And once the entire data is received, that input stream will have the full data. So it is going to take some time. It won't be immediate. That's the reason we are putting this particular part of code in do background, because it is going to take a amount of time until the entire stream is received. So that data type is actually an input stream. New UR something is there. URL is there. Built-in one. These are all the thing. URL. This guy is not drawing. Okay. Here it is. Even though some sort of error is showing, URL. The error obvious thing maybe exception. So I need to, for example, when I try to access the URL, try to get the stream from the URL, chances are there your string, for example, the URL may be malfunctioned. For example, a wrong URL. So in such a case, such a URL never exists in the internet. So in that case, it's a malfunctioned URL, or sometime you may have a space. So this kind of exceptions are possible, but it is still a valid string, but your code would not understand it as an error. But there is a possibility as the code started running, may find the URL is wrong. So an exception error is nothing but only encountered after execution of your code. When the code is started executing, then only you realize there is an error. So such a scenarios could be handled using the exceptions. Exceptions nothing but a runtime error or any other scenario which is unexpected, but programmatically it's still correct because it is still a valid string, but the string may not be understanding it is a wrong string, it is still a valid string. But once you start executing, trying to get a connection to internet, you'll identify, okay, this URL is wrong, so I need to handle that exception. I thought my slide messed up the URL still now. Okay, fine, it's good. So that exception I need to handle. Okay, this bulb surround with try catch. That's it. Now the input stream is ready. Now once you receive the input stream data, now need to convert it into a bitmap, because the input stream data is some sort of bytes. That bytes is something your expected data, and now I need to decode the byte to a expected format. Before that, let me declare a bitmap. Maybe to start with null. Same bitmap I'm going to return, because this is what it is expecting. And bitmap, okay, input string, bitmap factory. There is one bitmap factory. It's a part of Android SDK still, but it can decode the input stream to a specific, so decode stream. Yeah, there is one input stream. So the input stream is decoded into a bitmap data type. So now your bitmap has arrived. When the bitmap is ready, it is returned using the method do in background. Anything you return using this method would be captured like this method on PostExecute. Mean your bitmap has arrived, exit the background mode, come back to a foreground, and handle the data to a image view so that it can be displayed. So here I can go ahead, because the thread is exited, because the do in background is the only one which runs in the background mode. Maybe it's a thread. Now I'm out of this thread. Now I can contact the image view. I think image view at this point I may need to have a global. Set image bitmap. Yes. Because this bitmap type is yes. Okay, I'll make it for better understanding. Follow the sequence. Pre-execute, I don't think it's needed, but still have them. This guy is okay. Yeah. So the communication to internet starts in the background mode as you supply the URL through a var. So in this case, a variable argument is of type string, and this variable argument, the first argument is taken. This argument is called. Of course, I am sending the URL and opening the stream using that URL. Now when the stream is opened, the server will start sending the data, and the input stream waits until the entire bitmap is received. So here's a time taking process, a long time possible. Had I write the same code simply, or maybe here itself, no error, but your application will simply wait, because this is here, this is where the whole lot of time is going to be taken. Your application will become not responding. I mean, it's just simply stuck itself. In fact, your Android immediately, very cleverly start throwing an error. You don't write it here. In fact, programmatically, you can still write it, but it will affect the UI thread. Meaning your UI will stuck there itself. So we are taking a precaution here. We have already put that into a specialized thread called AsyncTask, which has a background method which does the work in a different thread and gets the open stream fully. When the stream is ready, then you decode into a bitmap, because we are expecting an image data to come. When the bitmap is ready, of course, it is it is actually handing over this to a PostExecute, and this receives the data, and this is where you are out of the thread background. It is the confirmation of your background thread is completed, and that result would be attached to this image. Sounds good, but we have to test it. Before that, I want to make sure whether I have an internet connection, because I'm running it from a USB connection. It often disconnects, so I want to check. Okay, since I have a active internet. It takes a lot of time. Do you guys have any other activity going on? Lot of some sort of sounds coming. I know there is some sort of deadlines being given to you. I really don't know, as your BOs are, I mean, maybe your batch reps were talking. I have no idea. But pay attention to the class. Okay, time to test. I have no idea. I should be making connection to internet. I have to wait. Everything comes. I could have loaded a small email. Something has happened here. I think it's not mine. Okay, you guys are ready. Okay, so data has come. So it connected to an internet, brought the image, and loaded. Meanwhile, the image was accessible, the UI was accessible, nowhere it's stuck. But the only thing, I don't know when the image will come. So that's the main thing. It may take a longer time. So it is always advisable to put some sort of take a user attention. You are doing something in the background. So it is advisable to show something, loading, or display something until your image is received. Oh, but anyway, it does the job. So I could access the data of any remote server and I can load it in my application. My data has been received. Using AsyncTask, I make a remote connection using an URL and make the connection, receive the byte. In this case, stream just going to be a bitmap type. And so since a bitmap, I'm showing it in an email. If you are receiving JSON, of course, if you are receiving a string type, you will be showing it in maybe a list view or somewhere else, so some data. So depending on the data which it sends you, and that you can capture them and use it here. But couple of thing I want to do it here. I could have used a slightly smaller image. That's why I kept it something. I want to introduce one new add-on. Progress dialog, another dialog, which is going to be displayed until your image is received. A loader. Okay, this guy need a context. Title and the message. So three parameters. One being context. So I need to adjust the constructor to take the context. Okay. The title. mm, Wait. Some message. So the progress dialog will be displayed. I want to make it as a progress dialog set cancelable to false, because chances are the user will hit the back button and dismiss it. We don't want to dismiss it. This progress dialog should be displayed until I receive the image from the internet. Till the time it will be showing some sort of loading bar. So since I add the constructor because I needed a context, I may have to adjust here also. Take this. I can update the progress dialog anywhere. I can change it. Set message. Okay, I think I can make it this way. Because this is where we are getting connected. And when it is done, we can dismiss. Uh, Dismiss. Yes. So this progress dialog would be shown the moment the async task started running, because we are calling in a constructor itself. And the moment it gets connected with the internet, it will simply change the message to a connected with server for some time. It will be there until your entire data is received. When your input stream completed, bitmap is received. When the data is the connection is handed over to a UI thread, this progress dialog will get dismissed. So now you will have an image. Let's see. Okay, so I get a message connected with server, mean it's receiving the message or receiving the data. It will be there until this Obama appears here. So till the Obama makes appearance here, this dialog will be popping up. We cannot dismiss it. Some possibility. So we'll have to wait. Now data is ready. So the progress went away. So that would be a kind of a professional way to say, okay, something is happening behind the screen, and the data is making connection with the server. If you notice, this line did not even appear, seems to be, because it immediately shifted to this part. It could have appeared even at some sort of small milli or microsecond, and then it went to connected with server, and then get dismissed, and we have a image. So that's also introduce one thing called progress dialog. Of course, I can customize the progress dialog with the percentage instead of simple loaders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But probably I'll take that into a next example, because I do have the same thing repeated for JSON type, XML type, and in that I need to separate HTTP get and HTTP post. So both the part I need to again take it off. So that will take another day for me to explain the other hooks of web service. But this is an interesting one. If you have your understanding pretty good on HTTP, I mean HTTP, I don't want you to understand how HTTP works at all, just how HTTP responds. HTTP connections is a highly asynchronous one, and when the connection is made, you have to wait until the response received. This is the only thing. Once you understand, you will understand why we need a thread here, why I need to separate from the UI thread. UI thread is nothing but your entire activity, and if you run the code there, your activity may become I mean, it may not respond. For example, any buttons, nothing could get clicked until the image is received. So to avoid that, we put it into a different thread. But thanks to Android, it has a API called AsyncTask that gives us a various option to access the remote server, and I can define what kind of URL and what kind of a data type I'm expecting, and I can get inside the background and come out of the foreground, and the background handovers the data to a foreground, and of course the background process does not affect the UI thread because obviously it's a thread. So anything related to web service, I'm going to use this async task hereafter. Maybe tomorrow's session, uh, apart from image, we have already seen the image. I'm going to tell you how to get the JSON response, how to get the XML response, and using HTTP get and post. There is a small difference, not big one, but this time we are going to get a what you call string data type. Mean the third argument is going to get changed. Instead of bitmap, there's going to be a string. And I will also let you know how to encode or decode a JSON in Java here, sorry, in Android, because it's an Android one add-on, additional one. So also I will explain how to parse the JSON and XML. So we'll see two examples of accessing the data, XML and JSON. So that is a tomorrow's task. Why I'm pushing it for tomorrow means I want you to understand it pretty well. So this code is pretty small. Any issues related to internet, please sort it out today itself. Make sure you access, put the proxy thing and anything, so get the internet access. If at all, after all these things, the internet is not accessible, please let me know. I'll have your Tomcat running so that the image could be put inside the Tomcat and you can access it. So some other way. Once we are done with this, it would be easy for us to test all examples of web service. Remember, web service extension goes ahead uh, decoding, for example, reverse geocoding your latitude, longitude, and there's going to be a GPS part which is going to have a dependency on this, because we are not going to do anything with the latitude, longitude, the numbers. We have to convert it into a readable address. So I need to communicate to Google server to get the reverse geocoded values. And of course, the eventual example will lead us to a Google map also. And of course, so that will simply take us to a various new example. When we are done, take everything back and put it into a SMS reply. That's what we are going to do. Hopefully you understood. Okay.